So welcome everybody on the Oxygen for Leadership Lab of today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Helena de Monk from Oxygen for Leadership, and I'm very happy to be able to facilitate an amazing panel today on our topic, the disease to please. Now, before we start, some little housekeeping. You are all muted. And we welcome you to put your feedback, your questions, your statements in the chat. You can put your chats in public, like to everybody, or if you want to remain anonymous because of whatever reason, then you could put it to the admin only, and then we will see your question or your feedback and bring it anonymously into the panel. There will be no Q&A, no formal Q&A. We will integrate your questions and your feedback in the panel in the moment. We're here for like 45, 15 minutes. And at the end of the webinar or at the end of the lab, we will be offering you some free gifts. Every panelist has prepared something for you to benefit from the expertise and the experience they have. So they will be gladly presenting the offer they have for you. And so let's start. Maybe to make sure that you can hear us and see us loud and clear, use the chat and let us know who you are, where you're from, what your energy level is. And we are really looking forward to your input so we can co-create this lab today together with you. So let's start with the introduction of my amazing panelists. I'm really so happy to have you all here. We have Jennifer from the south of the US. I think you are on holiday. You just broke your holiday for us. Thank you for that. We have Tracy May from Dubai. We have Sandra Lee from Canada and Bobby Hanbury also from the US. So maybe, Jennifer, can we start with you?
Yeah, sure. My name is
Please
Jennifer.
Take the floor.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me on the panel. I'm really looking forward to our conversation this morning. My name is Jennifer Crittenden, and I own a training company called The Discreet Guide. And I work with clients who are looking to move up in their careers and take the next step. And sometimes, indeed, the disease to please holds them back. So I'm looking forward to learning from everyone else on the panel so I can share those experiences with my clients.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Tracy, can you go next?
Yeah, hi everybody. Also lovely to be on the panel. My name is Tracy May and I am Managing Director of a diversity and inclusion organization. We have offices here in Dubai, and I, similarly to Jennifer, do quite a lot of executive coaching because we use coaching as a tool for inclusion. And out of my personal experience in working with people even at C-level, the disease to please is definitely a factor, and being an expert in it myself, and I say that from personal experience, I do notice that this plays a part in the thinking and the behavior of a lot of people, no matter how senior they are. So it's very relevant, I think, to as a topic for discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tracy. Sandra.
Yes, hello everyone. I am Sandra Lee, and I as well am very thrilled to be here with all of you. And just like our other two ladies just shared with you, I have found the exact same experience. My background has been in corporate culture transformation, and often on a global level. And what fascinates me is I've coached probably over 10,000 people, and at least 80% of those people are unhappy. And they're unhappy because they live according to someone else's agenda. And so they don't have a voice. And that's what my business is. It's about helping women find their voice.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sandra. Bobby.
Thanks, everyone, for having me here. Bobby Hanbury from America. I live in Atlanta, but today I'm in Birmingham, Alabama for one of the few businesses I'm involved with. And it's a good day. Very happy to be with all of you. The business I'm working on today is a blockchain and crypto consulting business. I help educate people, business leaders, on how to make sense of that ecosystem. And I'm also an investor. I have a background in money management. I'm a partner in a hedge fund, long-only equity fund, with a friend of mine. We helped set it up years ago. And then the last fun thing I do on the business front is I have a YouTube channel, Chord Savvy. And so I play guitar, I teach people how to do that, and I'm playing the whole social media game and how to connect. And I'm involved in a number of networks in the Middle East and Central Eurasia and other places, working with leaders and mentoring around the world. So I do a lot of things. There's a lot of room for mistakes. And so I'm happy to share some of those with each of you and entertain your questions and participate in this panel. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. So the reason why I connected with you and wanted to present you the topic of the disease to please is because also in my coaching work, mainly with women leaders, I feel that the desire to please is a key skill that we use also in our leadership and in connecting with our teams and with our stakeholders in general. And there's nothing wrong with that. The thing is that quite often it is not a desire to please, but a disease to please and holding us back and not having us making the right choices, not having us taking decisions in a firm and effective way. And I just wanted to have your opinions, your learnings on this topic. And maybe we can start with, how did the disease to please interfere with your professional life and with your professional choices? And I'm also inviting the audience to use the chat box to share with us how the disease to please is blocking them or how they are struggling with it. So we might be able also to integrate that into the conversation. So who wants to start?
I can start. This is Sandra again. It's interesting. I've met so many amazing, brilliant senior women who have this disease to please, and the impact that I've seen. One of them, for example, is a head of a human resources function and is unable to discipline her own people. I've seen other managers who have been bullied by their employees because they're not strong enough to speak up and have their voice heard. They want to please everybody. They want everybody to be happy. I've seen examples where people, because they don't speak up and they're just saying yes to everything, that all the work gets put to them and they end up working 6 days a week. They work on Saturdays. It's problematic in their personal lives. It's problematic at work, and they don't know how to speak up. And it's all because they want the approval of others. So it's just a few examples.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Other examples or experiences that we can share here?
I'm happy to share one. I'll share a personal story on the work front. I was in an investment firm years ago, and my mentor had a deadline the night before I was about to go on a trip, and we had to run everything through our compliance officer before it got distributed out in the public realm, right? But my mentor, the founder of the firm, he was always creative. So he was creating stuff, and then I had to get it to the compliance officer, and I was kind of stuck in the middle of these two forces. And there was a time crunch in this situation. And I remember emailing the night before, and I didn't hear back, and I was catching a flight at 10 a.m. And so I called my colleague, the compliance officer, and I said, hey, I don't know if you've seen it. And I didn't want to be pushy, right? I wanted to be nice, right? I wanted to please. And she was not very happy with that. She yelled at me, and she slammed the phone down.
Oh, no.
And then 2 minutes later, I'd get a call back, slide 32, change this. And she slammed it down. And then 2 minutes later, slide 47, slam it down. And I just remember how awful I felt, because I was 26 at the time. And I hated conflict. I just could not stand conflict as a teenager. And I've gotten much more comfortable with it. I don't like it, but you got to understand where the imperfections are in relationships the older you get. And I remember talking to my mentor, 6 months later about it. And I'd sent her this email, like, I'm really sorry. And I felt stuck, and she never responded.
Oh, wow.
And Garnet, he said, well, Bobby, I understand. And I said, I like people. I like people to like me. I'm like a Labrador, right? I just wanted to be happy. And he said, Bobby, you just got to let it go. I mean, you're not going to change it, and you're not going to please everyone. And you have a choice on how you let those situations impact you or not. That was a really important learning moment for me. And I was able to change how I operated with her, our compliance officer. And I took things less personally, and I also didn't realize she had a very serious personal issue with her brother who was very ill at the time. And so you never know what's driving other people's emotions, and so how do you play it straight down the middle as much as possible without letting those emotions come in when you don't feel like you're pleasing all of the egos in a situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That really resonates with me. That is very, yeah. I guess I see you now, Jennifer. Do you
Yeah,
recognize that?
yeah, I was going to say I've got a client who I think I had not diagnosed what she was suffering from before, but I think there's an element of a disease to please in her work situation. She seems to give away a lot of her power to other people and really be concerned all the time about what other people are thinking of her. And it's very inhibiting. It goes back to what Sandra was saying about it affects what she does because she's so distracted all the time by thinking about what other people are thinking of her and do they still respect her and is she showing proper authority. It's like part of me just thinks just do your job, right? Don't worry so much about that. But it's such a trap, I think, for us to get distracted by other people. And it's even part of a larger problem is that we want to be liked, right? I mean, I'm like Bobby. I want to be liked too. I want to be liked, but we also have a job that we have to do. And sometimes that job requires us to do things that other people, may not like.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an easy trap to fall into for sure.
Absolutely. And I think it's not only about the things that we have to do, it is also about taking decisions that implicate things that are not so comfortable sometimes for people, especially if it's about strategic decisions, but we have to make them. And the higher you come on the ladder in organizations, the more this pleasing issue plays a destructive or a disruptive role. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that. Tracy, you also said you were a specialist. Tell
Yeah,
us.
I'm listening to what everyone's saying and just thinking of how it all sort of ties up for me. But I think there's a piece here. There's two things for me. The one is around the skill at reading other people's needs, the empathy for other people's positions, the ability to read a room, read relationships, know what's needed. Those are all wonderful skills. But if they go into overdrive, what tends to happen is we become so tuned in to what other people need and what's going on for other people that it becomes easy to tune out of our own needs and what we need in a situation. And that's, I think, what sets up the tension. And Bobby mentioned something about being conflict averse. And I think that's definitely a feature too. So I noticed with my own life and my own experience, but also with my clients, that we want to avoid conflict between people, so we become yes people because we try to defer the conflict. But in fact, what happens is the conflict becomes internal to us. Mm-hmm. And it sets up this cognitive dissonance. And we pay a very high price for walking around with that level of inner conflict. So I think the idea that we can avoid conflict by being yes people, it can stand to be challenged a bit because, in fact, I don't think you can avoid conflict. It's like energy. It just goes into another form. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and then just coming back to that career piece, I notice with my clients that as they're progressing up the ladder, the skill set to be pleasing and accommodating to the boss, to the big people, is actually very useful because they learn how to create collateral in their relationships. But as they transition and become more senior, the level of complexity they have to deal with is overwhelming. And the things that supported them in getting to this position no longer support them in holding this position. Mm-hmm. And that's where the crisis comes, and they have to go, it served me then, but it's not serving me now. How do I learn to say no?
Exactly. And also, I think there is a paradox in the pleasing, because when you say yes to everybody, you can't make up for all your promises. So, instead of pleasing everybody, in the end, you end up disappointing people because you cannot keep all the plates in the air. Is that something that resonates to you or to the audience? I'm going to check in the meantime.
To me, it's not. It's pleasing. You kind of view it as binary. Like I'm pleasing you or I'm not, right? And there's really kind of a spectrum of emotions out there. And I think you need to understand, I'm an engineer, mechanical engineering background, so forgive this, but like there's an optimization equation for how much you please people, right? And so to the point earlier, I believe Tracy made about, the higher you move up in the organization, what got you there, it changes, and there are different demands on you and different criticisms and different praise. And you just have to figure out what is the right balance of praise to criticism for you that makes you a happy, healthy, productive person, while also making it that way for the organization, and knowing that it changes and it's very fragile at times. And so that's something where in certain moments I've just had to tell myself, all right, I know that I'm going to get beaten up for this. Like I was the president of my homeowners association, and that is like a no-win job.
Good luck, right?
And I hated going to the mailbox and checking my mail some days because I didn't want to get attacked by somebody. And other people were really nice. And it's just, you just have to kind of let those emotions out or deal with them in a more constructive way, I think, if you're going to have progress, especially if you're going to be a leader and move further up in the organization.
Right. That's so true. Can I add to that? I really believe that it's important that any decision we make is in the best interest of the organization. But I completely understand there's a fine line you've got to walk to balance all these different egos. And I find that when people present from the other person's perspective, so if I'm the boss and I want X and I'm the employee or the senior manager and I think it's Y, and I've got lots of evidence behind me on that, do I just shut up and bury my soul and just to please him? No, I won't do that. But I'll say, I understand this is what you want. Can we discuss some ideas that might support that? Which I find is a different way. It's using those of you, you're all coaches, using a coaching style of relating to still, meet the goals of the organization, but also try and balance the ego of some of the people you're working with. It's quite a challenge, as you've all described already.
Yeah, absolutely. And I maybe just add to that I notice that when that disease to please is at play, we very often have this very sort of parent-child relationship dynamic that goes on in the workplace. So the big person demands and the child complies. And I think, Sandra, what you've just mentioned there is renegotiating that relationship and coming into a more adult-to-adult kind of dynamic and negotiating for your own space.
Absolutely. Which brings up the bigger issue. Those of us that still have a child unhealed inside, that child is going to come up and sabotage, and you're going to hear a juvenile response and not a professional response. That's a whole other topic, but certainly a lot of the roots to the disease to please. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Let me bring in some feedback from the audience. There's Ines that is making a statement, and she says, "Want to be liked pleasing is not the same as being assertive, but there is a connection." Anybody who has some feedback on that or can add something to that?
Sorry, say it again, Helena. What did she say?
Wanna be liked pleasing is not the same as being assertive, but there is a connection.
Yeah, I'm happy to comment on that. I think being assertive and negotiating for your own space means that you have to be willing to go through that unbearable feeling, which Bobby described earlier, of I've let people down, I'm not pleasing, they're not going to be happy with this. And I think if you can do that, you can come into a kind of a clear mind about how to negotiate for your position. And some might call that assertiveness, some might call that self-care. We can give it different names, but it is about taking up your own space in the equation and ensuring that you don't create a lose for yourself in order to try and find a win for the other person.
Right.
Absolutely.
I often think self-awareness is really the key to changing your behavior and recognizing that you are suffering from the desire to please somebody else, kind of recognizing that in the moment. And that might give you then the ability and the courage and the recognition that this is actually a moment when I have to assert myself. This is part of my job, right? That I need to push back against this idea, as Sandra said, or point out a flaw in the group's thinking, or, I need to take action here because this is my job. This is what I bring to the table. This is why I hold a position in this company. So recognizing that you have something that you have to do that's important, that is separate from this as we've talked about, the desire to please or have someone like you, especially your boss, because they have so much power over you. But sometimes that can give you a tool then to take action.
Right. Right. And when you're the one to speak up, everybody else in the meeting is sitting there going, oh, they're so right. Why didn't I say that? Right.
Or we're thinking, that's exactly what I was thinking. And
Right.
now I see I didn't have the nerve to say that and I should have.
Lost my opportunity. Yes.
Yeah.
And often the complaint that I hear, which links back to the disease to please, I think, is nobody is showing me the respect I deserve. If that's what you are presenting with, it's most likely that you yourself are not showing yourself the respect you deserve, and other people are mirroring that.
100%.
Yeah.
I also think there's some training of the leaders that has to go on in this situation because, we tell junior staff, oh, you need to speak up, right? We want to hear your ideas. You have things to offer. And then when they tell us things that we don't like, then we are mad and we're unhappy that they spoke up. And then we have to remind ourselves, really, we are training them, right? We are teaching them to assert themselves. And we have to welcome their input, even when it's different than what we think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Let me bring in a question from Montara. Hi, Montara. How do you deal with a strategic decision such as having to terminate somebody, especially if they are part of your team and you do not want to upset them, but you have to let them go?
Yeah.
Any ideas on that?
I like to. Sorry, Bobby. Did you want to? I'm talking, so you go. You go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tracy.
Okay, I'll just say this. I like to help my clients differentiate between hurt and harm. Sometimes you have to do things that create hurt, and they're necessary in order to achieve whatever it is you're trying to achieve or to move forward in a constructive way. Harm, on the other hand, often comes about when we avoid or we try to avoid a potential hurt, and we create other much more toxic situations because transparency and honesty goes out of the system, and harm is created on a very real level going forward from that. So that sometimes helps them to differentiate. If I do this, am I causing hurt? Or if I fail to do it, could I be causing harm?
Very well said.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yes.
And the idea I want to throw out that I think builds off of that, what she just shared, is there's a book, the name escapes me, but it was the woman who was the head of HR for Netflix for 15 years or so. And I think it's something about like creating freedom and power in a workplace or something is the title. But she really addresses this head on, where basically they had a very open culture about when we let you go, it's because you're not serving in your role currently, and or we think there's another opportunity out there that's better. They even encouraged everyone on a regular basis, go out and look for jobs. While you're employed at Netflix, go look for jobs, okay? And come back, and if you get an offer, let's talk about it, because we want to have a sense of what your value is in the market, and we want you to feel valued and that we're treating you the right way. So that's a bigger issue of kind of building a culture that's like that. But I think if you read that book, which is pretty easy on Audible, it'll only take you like 3 or 4 hours. It really gives some really interesting insights on some new ways to think about HR, and you're actually helping that person get to a better place ultimately if it's not the right fit for where they're at currently.
Yeah. I guess especially in HR roles, the disease to please is a hard one to deal with because there are a lot of difficult conversations. There are a lot of strategies interfering with personal aspirations where like the HR business partners are somewhere in between. So I guess this question from Montara really is very, very relevant in a lot of organizations. Yeah.
Yeah, it's important. It's important to remember that a very common complaint from employees is that the management does not terminate people who should be terminated, and that creates, that desire to avoid that kind of conflict creates all kinds of other harm, as we were talking about. And so you really have to recognize that that's part of your job, is terminating people who should be terminated. What I try and do, because this was so painful for me, telling someone that they could no longer work at the company was something that it was the worst for me. I just really, really suffered from that. But I did find that over time, I could understand better how to explain to myself and also to the person and to the other employees that this was not the position where that person would be successful. That person needed to be in a different job. And that person obviously hadn't taken that decision on their own. And so we were the ones who were taking action. But really, in the grand scheme of things, it's better for the world. It's better for us. It's better for that person if this individual goes and finds a different job. And that helped me somewhat reconcile the crisis.
Right.
Yeah, reframing and context creation can make a lot of difference. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Anything else there? Let me bring you something, because I saw Peter writing something in the chat. Thank you for that, Peter, because the thing is that the disease to please is not only harmful for yourself in terms of creating your professional life at the fullest potential. It is also harmful for your staff. And Peter describes it very nice. Nothing as easy as pleasing all your employees. Leadership is not pleasing everyone, but it is paying attention to every individual employee, knowing their talents and motivations. So you can give them the right role in the team, which will lead to better results of the organization and the team. The disease to please with some of my clients is really having an impact on the development of the team, or better said, the lack of development of the team, because people are so eager to make sure that there's a comfort in the team and that there's no distress. They take on everything on themselves. That was already mentioned. People work way too hard. But on the other hand, the team has no possibility to grow and to develop and take the ownership of the roles. Does that resonate to you?
Yeah, and that resonates so much with me, because one of my biggest leadership lessons when I first really started to move into a leadership C-level position, my leadership was unstable, and I'll tell you why. Because I was so conscious of what everybody needed around me, and the needs were different, they were very diverse people. And so I was running backwards and forwards, trying to accommodate and keep connection with all the people that were in my sort of system. And it was a real revelation to me one day when I realized that I myself was causing the instability in the system. And it was a coaching situation that I got into. And my coach advised me, Tracy, why don't you just decide what you stand for in your leadership and stand still? And the system will organize itself around you. And my goodness, wasn't that the truth? So the moment I stood for what I stood for and I declared my position and I put a stake in the ground, the system calmed right down. People found their position around me as a leader, and we were able to work effectively together. And I was so grateful for that lesson, because it literally changed the way I led.
And Tracy, that's so important, because the only way we can overcome the disease to please is to do just that, to figure out who we are, what is our own personal foundation, and put our stake in the ground. Absolutely. And you look at all these successful people, and it's not because they tried to please everybody, it's because they said, this is what I believe in, and I'm going to say what's important to me, and let's see how it lands for people. They're comfortable in their own skin. It's so important.
I always say to people, when you have the disease to please, your biggest issue is not your relationship with others. Your biggest issue is your relationship with yourself.
Yes. 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 We speak the same language, you and I.
Absolutely. Now, referring to your answers on Montaja's question on how you have the conversation of letting somebody go, she adds that sometimes when one employee is terminated, it causes harm to the team, especially if they're not told about the reason why the employee has been laid off. What's your take on that? Anyone that would like to add on that?
Yes, absolutely. I see that happening all the time. And in some ways, it's a disease to please because I don't want to hurt the image or the reputation of the departing employee, or I just don't want to share what's going on. But you've got to talk to the team because they have worked with this employee and they have a relationship and they need to put closure to it. So it's absolutely important. What you're saying there, Mantaha, unfortunately, whoever that happened to, it's the wrong way to do it. You've got to have some level of communication and conversation with the remaining employees. And part of it could just be asking them, so what's on your mind? What are you feeling? What are you experiencing? What do we want to talk about related to the departing employee versus just trying to keep quiet and fearful of hurting anybody?
Absolutely. And I must say, Caroline is adding, thank you, Caroline, that it's true that it often turns out to be better for everyone concerned if somebody is let go at a certain moment, if that goes respectfully. And she said, she was terminated at one moment in her employment, and she says it was the right thing to do, and everybody was better off. It just takes courageous leadership. So she thanks you all for that point. So thank you, Caroline. That's
and
great.
I'd like to add that there's two types of termination. One is where the organization terminates you, and the other is where you terminate yourself and you free yourself to go a different direction. And I was in that investment firm 11 years. The founder was leaving. He was in his early 80s. I was very worried. There were 14 people, small team. He was the big rainmaker. We were very concerned about the future, and there were a lot of debates in-house on what we should be as a firm, more marketing or more investment. I mean, there's kind of these, every industry has that, different shades. And I spent the last year really depressed and angry in the job, and I kept trying to change the system from the bottom, right? It's really hard to do. It's extremely hard to do. And you do not get liked. And even though I knew I was right for the reasons I was right, I came to the realization, I was like, whatever, it's running exactly the way they've designed it to run. And my energy is taking me in a different direction in the world. And I left, and I remember when I made the phone call to the incoming CEO, John, I said, John, my heart's not in it anymore, and we got to figure out how to phase me out of the business. I didn't give him a 2-week notice. I had a target of being out in like a month to 2 months, and I called all the clients, all 50 of them, and said, hey, I'm leaving. I'm going to do entrepreneurial stuff, but I'm going to leave some of my retirement funds in the firm, smart investors. I just have a different direction I'm going. And I felt great.
Yeah. I've had the same experience, and I've noticed that another characteristic of disease to please is that we don't like endings. We like to say yes because yes is an attaching word. We like to please because it connects us with people. And the word no or a statement of ending separates us, and we don't like that. But it is one of the most liberating things that you can do and the most courageous things you can do when you recognize that you're no longer contributing well to the system because the system is moving in a direction that you're not moving in, and just have the courage to say, this is an ending, and then to end well. Because in Western cultures, we do not end well. It's always this shameful whispering and out the door, here today, gone tomorrow. Because I work in, a very diverse environment and with a lot of high context cultures, hats off to them because they end well. There is a ceremony, there is a declaration, there is an appreciation, there is a summing up, and then there is a natural break. And that is healing for the whole system.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to go back to that question of termination because, not that I want to give our viewers more reasons to dislike their workplaces, because some people hate their workplaces, but it is a sign of a sick workplace when you have this illusion that everyone is getting along, right? This is often what HR people want. Oh, we are just the most wonderful team. We never have any conflict. Well, there's a lot of conflict usually. It's just being repressed and kept under the surface. And then suddenly, one day, someone is fired and no one explains why. And it's a sign of dysfunction for that to happen. We need to be much more open about what's happening between members of the team, because we are human beings and things are happening between us. And then I really like this idea of that there's a summing up, there's an explanation, there's a we all arrive at an understanding of what happened instead of this sort of strange, okay, that person is now gone. We don't really know why, and they're not telling us why. And we're just left with this uneasy feeling like, well, could somebody else be taken out tomorrow
Right.
also with no explanation?
Yeah. I've seen in several organizations, and this is a particular phenomenon I found in family-run businesses. I probably worked with about 9 of them in my career. They don't like to terminate people because it feels like family. And they just take a toxic employee and transfer them to another department. And when they finally let them go, the owners are just beside themselves. And then everybody in the organization comes back the next day and they say, thank you. What took you so long? So it's a learning for them as well, but it's so important to be able to make that transition. And as you're both saying, make it a clean departure and one that is respectful and open and honest. That transparency is critical, as Peter's talking about in his comments.
And it's easy to talk about transparency and open and share your feelings. And then when you're energized after this, then you go back into the conference room and you're like, man, how do I really say that to Bob? Because I think he's not going to like it. Right? And so if you want a tool, one of the things that was a really powerful exercise in my former firm, the one where I was trying to figure out the future of the firm and all that, I led an anonymous survey. You can go on SurveyMonkey, create a 10-question survey, whatever you want. But I asked 8 questions, what is the culture of our firm? What would you like the culture of our firm to be? What is the biggest risk to our firm? Where will we be in 5 years if we do something, 5 years if we don't? Is there anything else that anyone wants to say about anything? Kind of questions like that. And then I pulled them all into a Word document, shuffled them up, so it wasn't like the first answer was always the same person and people could decode that that's John or whatever. And then recirculated it back, and all 14 people in our firm filled it out. All 14 people got a copy of all the responses, which was communicated up front. And in our holiday party that year, we had 2 offices, an Atlanta and a New Jersey office. In the Atlanta office, we'd always go up to New Jersey. We had a 6-hour-long conversation as a firm that I got to facilitate because I led this initiative on where are we going and what's happening. The founder's leaving. We've lost a bunch of assets. What's the future of the firm? So you can create an exercise like that to get it out. If you're in the moment, you don't know how to address it, right? Yeah. Especially if you're more maybe introverted and you want it rather than extrovert it out. So that's a tool that I would suggest you use on your teams.
Yeah, those are great questions.
And I think it raises a really interesting point that it's not just individual people who have the disease to please, it's actual organizational systems that can have the disease to please. And one of the things I've noticed with organizations that are dysfunctional in this way is that there's very little feedback. Because again, feedback brings separation. It brings a level of challenge to the relationship, and we don't want to challenge any of our relationships. So we're not giving feedback. And of course, the impact on morale is very negative. Nobody knows what good looks like.
Right.
Awesome.
I just went to a friend's, I shouldn't be smiling, but it was a really interesting insight. A friend of mine's funeral just last week. He was a very successful musician, did a bunch of jingles for Super Bowls, and just a fabulous, energetic guy and a lovable guy. And at the funeral, his daughter made a comment that she said, and one of the things my father taught me is that none of us knows what we're doing. Right? And it kind of gets to the messiness of the human experience, right? I mean, we all know how, all of us are dressed nicely and we did our sound check before and we're doing all, the stuff that you should do. But when it comes to the realm of emotions and interactions and what's really right, there's never a singular answer. And if you're open to more flexibility and the fact that we're all kind of chaotic in moments and it still works, I think that can give you a different standard, and you're not as worried about pleasing, and you're just more present to what's actually happening and open to other possibilities in relationships.
That's a great point, Bobby, and I have to jump on that because I do a lot of training for young professionals, and I find that many times they are so preoccupied with appearing professional that they lose their soul or their character or their personality, their individuality, I would say. So you've probably had the experience of talking to somebody at a networking event and the person basically says nothing the whole time that you have a conversation. And that's such a shame because we each bring such an interesting set of experiences and thoughts. And I mean, each one of us is just a miracle, really. But I do think that preoccupation with appearing professional can really hold people back. And I find it takes people a while in their careers before they kind of get it. Like, it's okay for me to be a little weird because we're actually all a little weird. And it's better for me to show my weirdness than for us all to act like robots and try and pretend that we all think the same and should behave the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
completely agree.
Yeah, I can see there's a lot of energy on what you're saying, Jennifer, because everybody wants to react on that. But absolutely. So please, Tracy, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I don't know if this translates into other cultures, but we were brought up to believe that if something is worth doing, it's worth doing well. And I just think that that is contributing to this reticence to move forward because I don't know how to do it well yet. And one of the things that I tell myself and my clients to kind of get them into that spontaneous, intuitive state is if it's worth doing badly until you learn to do it well.
Yeah.
And just opening up that space for learning.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
Yeah.
There's a great TED talk on the Marshmallow Tower. I don't know if people have watched that.
Oh, yes, yeah.
It's 15 or 20. Watch it to build off of that point. And it talks about they have CEOs and CEOs with their administrative assistants and engineers and, I don't know, college students and then kindergartners that all have to build a tower with spaghetti and a marshmallow and cake in 30 minutes. And then they see who gets the highest tower at the end. And there's a really powerful insight in there about prototyping. And the more you prototype and the more you experiment and the more you're comfortable with failure along the way, then you'll figure it out. Because again, none of us really knows what we're doing until you kind of get that experience that comes with you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I just want to jump on Jennifer's comment about, we're all a miracle. That just resonates with me so strongly. I believe that every single one of us matters. Everybody has something wonderful to contribute. And sometimes we get buried under layers and layers and layers of expectation of everybody around us. And somehow the real us got lost. Mm-hmm. And it's so rewarding to watch someone peel away those layers and let their true spirit come out. And they're terrified watching. And they don't realize how many people they inspire just by sharing one thought. Because everyone has the ability to inspire others. And maybe it's the starting point for those of us who have that disease to please is to try and find that one thing that we love, that we're passionate about, and share it, maybe with a small audience, one person, two people, a family meeting, group dinner, whatever it is, and watch what happens and start to feel even better about yourself and standing up for who you are.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. In the meantime, hi, Jean. I saw you already. I see that you have this amazing role of researcher. I saw another link, and I guess that was the link to the book that Bobby was referring to. Could you please confirm that? And I see now that you shared the link for the TED Talk. Thank you so much. You're amazing. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you so much. So we have all the information that was mentioned. The links are in the chat. Thanks to Jean Bellinger. It's who is a future panelist for one of our talks. So great, excellent. So yes, that was the link to the book. So people who want to check the book that Bobby was referring to, just go back in the chat and then you will find the book.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I just put a quick note. I didn't realize you sent the link. One other book recommendation on the miracle is there's a book I just finished this weekend. It's really kind of eerie that this was just mentioned by Jennifer. But it's called The Greatest Miracle in the World by Og Mandino. I'll type this down, Og Mandino. And he was, in the 60s, he was one of the premier leadership gurus on the planet. He wrote The Greatest Salesman in the World and a bunch of others. But the greatest miracle in the world is each of us, to your point. And he has you read this passage 100 days in a row at the end of the book to reinforce the positive energy around that. But if somebody wants something actionable to build off of that, and I'm sure the universe told me to share this right now because I just finished it, go check it out.
Awesome. Okay.
That's great. Thank you. I'll take a look at that.
Yeah. So I'm not only a facilitator, I'm also the timekeeper, and I can see that we are on our 45 minutes. This has been amazing. I must say I've really enjoyed the energy that was in this co-creational conversation, and there were so many nuggets for learning in it. I'm really convinced that the audience will really benefit from that. And we are going to add a little bit on those benefits because, as I told you, each of our panelists have prepared something that might be related to our topic of today, or that might completely not be related to the topic of today, but I love it. So let me just clear the floor by inviting our panelists to say like one final note on what has been brought and shared together with the audience today. And then we are going to jump to the offers that we have for our people. So who wants to start with a final note?
I'll start. My takeaway from all of our conversations, and thank you all for sharing your wisdom. It's fabulous. That there is an art to pleasing and a time and place to pleasing, and to be able to separate when it is appropriate, when it's not appropriate. But the most important person is to make sure that we're being true to ourselves, and everything else will flow from there. That's my takeaway.
Thank you so much.
I'll add a little bit to that. It's a great insight. And for me, if you're a people pleaser, you'll probably also find that you're quite self-critical. So my invitation to you is to hold yourself with compassion. Enjoy the learning journey. Really open up to it. There's no place to arrive at. Nobody has arrived. Nobody on this panel has arrived. We will never arrive. So that's okay. We don't have to get there. We can just be here right now and be here compassionately with ourselves as we learn to walk this out.
Yes, absolutely.
I would add to that that part of becoming a leader is coping with conflict, something that I had to learn, and learning that people may not like what you do, right? But that you're still doing your job. So I think opportunity for our viewers here is to recognize when you're in that uncomfortable situation and you're going to have to go talk to Bob and he's not going to like what you're going to say, that you can recognize that and say, yep, this is part of being a leader. This is me being a leader right here, walking into this room. And that recognizing that may help you get through that moment.
The closing comment I would share is, first off, I am very pleased with this whole experience in the past hour, and I've had a lot of fun. And I also really I'm watching the comments, and I really appreciate what people are sharing here. That makes me happy. And I would say that, like others have said, you got to please yourself. And when it gets like a pendulum, when it gets too far out of whack, you got to figure out how to bring it back in so that your center feels healthy. Okay. You can meditate in the morning or do there are a lot of things you can do that are practical. And the other thing is try and see it from other people's perspectives, right? Because, you may not actually be pleasing them when you think you are. You're actually pleasing yourself in a way that doesn't work. So just really question yourself in a constructive way in certain moments without beating yourself up. And I think if you do that, you'll find more harmony in the personal and the professional relationships you have in your life.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, everybody. So let's go to our offers. Let me, for the audience, publish the first offer, and that is Jennifer's offer. So Jennifer, what did you... It should be... Yes, please. Just for the audience, if you click the links that are shown right now, it just opens another tab that you can address to after this session. So just click and let it rest so we can have all the offers subsequently. And this one is from Jennifer.
What I'm offering today doesn't have a lot of monetary value, but I hope that it has almost immeasurable value in your career. It's a self-assessment tool that I use in my coaching program about executive presence. And so as you proceed through the questionnaire, you'll be assessing yourself on factors related to your executive presence, which I describe as kind of your vibe, right? How you come across to people. And it isn't so much the truth about your presence, but it's how you feel about it, right? So if there are areas that you're uncomfortable with, those are areas that you can then focus on. So it gives you some direction that you can work on. So that questionnaire has actually now been taken by over 400 professionals, and I have quite a bit of data about where people are on that assessment related to their education or their experience or their gender, age, all kinds of things. So yeah, please help yourself. And if you want to get in touch to talk about how it came out, I'm happy to talk to anybody.
Okay. What I also can add is that I think by beginning of next week, you will all receive a follow-up email with all the links and email addresses of the panelists, so you can easily connect with them if you feel the need or if you think that is useful. So that will also follow. Thank you so much for this amazing offer, Jennifer. Thank you. Let me see, Bobby. Do you want to go next? Go with your fun offer.
Well, I think they're both fun, but one is even more fun because it's
you know which one I mean.
So I have a YouTube channel called Chord Savvy, CHORD Savvy, and I give lessons on how to learn cover songs. It's quality content, straight to the point. So rather than 15 or 20 minutes, it's down to 3 or 6 minutes. So if you want to see me do a blockchain song and sing that, check it out. If you want to see me cover Britney Spears' Hit Me Baby One More Time and laugh.
Yes, I do.
If you want some other sing-alongs, check it out. But, like, subscribe, share, but it's free content, and I'm, trying to connect with everybody who likes guitar around the planet. And then
a great way to please people. Learning to play guitar. Amazing.
Exactly.
In a good, healthy way.
If you look at some of the comments, I'm not pleasing everyone. I got to work on that. But anyway, the other thing was, I think, a link that you shared for I speak around the world. Right, and so there's a video that my friend Samir Samal and I did for people that want to start a speaking business. What are actionable steps you can do to build experience and go find gigs and then eventually be hired as a paid speaker. And that's a free video we put online to help other people and to open up a conversation with people that want to talk to us about our journey in that entrepreneurial endeavor.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much. Sandra, I have no link for you, but you have your story on your offer. Please.
Yes, so what I would like to offer is a complimentary coaching conversation for anyone who's interested in what I would call almost like a discovery call to learn about yourself and where are you relative to the disease to please? Where are you relative to finding your voice? And do you feel that you have handed your power away to other people? Do you feel like you are a victim to other people's behavior? And we can have a conversation about that and help set you on a path that might serve you to overcome some of those.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sandra. Can you put your email also in the chat so people
certainly.
Can take that? And it will certainly also be in the follow-up email.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that.
My pleasure.
Tracy, let me pull up your offer. Here it is. I'm going to publish it so people should be able to see it. Please go ahead.
Okay, so I can't see it, so I hope I'm giving the right offer here. But similar to the last one, I really felt that I'd like to offer 3 coaching conversations to 3 different people on the topic. If you've heard something that has provoked you that you want to explore further, for yourself in a coaching conversation, I'd love to partner with you on that. So that's the one offer. And then the other one is, which was a suggestion that Helena made really, because we work in diversity and inclusion, this is not related to the topic today, but we do a lot of work around cultural intelligence. And I've just written a short ebook on why cultural intelligence matters. So I'd love to be able to share that with you if that's your interest.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So I published that, so the link is on your screen. So if you click it, you will be able to download the PDF. Thank you so much, Tracy. And also for your other offer, that is very valuable. So if you could also put your email in the chat box so people can copy that one. And so the first 3 people connecting with you will receive the e-coaching or it's a virtual coaching, isn't it?
Yeah, it'll be virtual unless you're moving through Dubai in the next few weeks.
I'll be there the first week in September. Let's meet up.
Well, there you go. Okay, good plan.
Together, excellent. So I will remove that offer. I have something I would like to offer to all of you as well. First of all, for those who are not yet a member or are a free member of the Oxygen for Leadership community, I offer you a 1-year affiliative membership of the community. Oxygen for Leadership community is a membership platform full of leadership content that you can access at your own pace on different topics. It's video, audio. The recordings of these sessions are also there, and there's also the Authentic Leadership Roadshow, which is a video series where I'm hosting women role models, offering their authentic stories for you to be inspired and to be encouraged. So if you're not a member yet, please join us. And the other offer that I want to make is we launched our e-coaching platform recently. I'm just checking. No, that's not there yet. I will add that in the email. I will put up the link for our next lab. So please, if you enjoyed today, then certainly register for the lab that we will have in September. It's September 26th. It is on dealing with conflicting values. One of the panelists is Jean, who was so helpful today in our session. And I really hope to see all of you back next month, and looking forward to your comments. I guess all the panelists are also looking forward to your feedback and your reflections afterwards. You will receive their emails, so feel free to take the opportunity to connect with them, because they have so valuable learnings. I guess we could fill 3 or 4 more sessions with all of you. Thank you so much for your contribution. It was really an amazing session. I loved it, and I'm looking forward to connecting with all of you pretty soon. Bye. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.